kind of changing their approach in terms of interacting with people down there, and I want to be sure that, well, number one, I just want to understand what this is about.
Okay, so this is a very, very limited resolution. It came out of community meetings with area residents in the Southwood and Western Trails neighborhood. It's limited to one overpass at the Manchac and Ben White overpass. It came out of recommendations from community meetings we had last summer with area residents, with clergy, with EMS, with ECHO, with TXDOT, with APD, with AISD, with CAP Metro, and other experts in the mental health, child welfare, and sex trafficking fields. So it was part of it's one of the recommendations that's come out of a very specific community effort in District 5. So, and it's one of many approaches that group came up with a set of recommendations to handle the difficulties that are occurring in that neighborhood and in that area. And those recommendations are a combination of public safety approaches and social service approaches that connect homeless individuals to needed services. So this is one of those recommendations, and we've been going through a series of passing other parts of those recommendations as I bring them to council. So what this specifically does is it is only a jurisdictional issue. So all it does is it simply allows APD, it's a relationship, an agreement between TXDOT and APD that relates to the jurisdiction of APD as to TXDOT property, and it's limited, as you can see the resolution is limited to TXDOT property under and near the US 290 SH 71 overpass spanning Manchac Road and Packsaddle Pass. It doesn't affect any other areas. And so what it does, and it also does not provide any additional authority to APD, nor does it prescribe what APD may do on that property. In other words, I don't know what, all it does is it simply allows APD to address offenses on this particular TXDOT property in the same way that they can on other properties where owners give permission, such as churches and businesses. So this is a standard process. Churches and businesses may give permission to APD to come onto their property as needed to address things like trespassing or other things like that. So this is just TXDOT as a property owner entering into agreement that says to APD, you may access my property. It doesn't create any new offenses. It doesn't create any new action by APD, nor does it say anything about what APD may choose to do on that property. It is simply a step that allows for additional, just like a church or business. So it's really very simple, and it's been vetted very thoroughly by the community groups that have come together in that neighborhood, which includes APD, which includes ECHO. We've been working with ECHO on this, and this is one of the recommendations that they participated in. So it's been very thoroughly vetted. It doesn't have anything to do with you had asked a question about another effort. I forget exactly what you called it. This has
It's a TXDOT effort.
Yeah, well, this has nothing to do with that. This is limited to this one property. It does not supersede or take the place of anything TXDOT is doing in another part of town. It is simply this underpass.
Councilmember Flanagan.
Sir? Yes, sir. I believe you are correct, is that this agreement would give APD the authority to act as an agent for TXDOT to specifically to address the criminal trespass. I think in reference to the pilot that has been mentioned is that APD will be working with stakeholders as well as ECHO and others in the neighborhood, the church, together to really look at a holistic approach to this particular issue. I know it does look as that Criminal trespass is a criminal, it's a crime, but this is not the intent of APD to criminalize the homeless, but to actually just to use it as a tool to have a conversation in a legal way to be on the property to address not only the homeless, but those that prey on the homeless that are in that particular area.
You can't now go up to homeless people under a bridge?
Yes, sir. In a consensual way, yes, sir, we can. But this gives us a little bit more of a legal encounter to where we can have that conversation. I hate to say a detention, but it allows us to legally have that conversation with that person to investigate, to look further and deeper into the particular situation, whether it be someone that needs resources or someone that we may need to remove from that particular location.
And you can't do that now under any bridge in the city?
We can have a consensual encounter, but if that person does not want to have any interaction with the department or the officer that has that encounter, then we have no legal action to take at that point unless they have committed some type of crime. So the answer is yes, we can walk under the bridge and have a consensual encounter with anyone under the bridge.
So if there's someone sleeping under the bridge?
Yes, sir.
Under any bridge, you can walk up to them and say, hey, how you doing? What are you doing here? Do you need any help? You can do all those things now.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And they can look at you and say, no, I just don't want to talk to you.
Correct.
And then the conversation's over because you can't make them talk to you.
Correct.
Unless you're in this pilot program, in which
Correct.
case you can do more than, you can do something else.
Correct.
What is that something else that you
Well, and the legal aspect is that it is where the criminal trespass is. We can look at different options. We can give them a warning, such as when we talked about in the juvenile curfew, to where we can have more of a conversation with them about some of their options and alternatives to potentially being incarcerated.
So the difference is you can threaten them with incarceration to get them to talk to you.
Well, we hope that it's not threatening, but yes, is that we would have a legal means to detain that person until the stop was concluded. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, could I speak for a moment? I think that it is not the intention of the and I think this is what you're saying, of the recommendations of this community group. And I want to emphasize again that this was APD recommendation, EMS, ECHO, the clergy. In other words, the intent in this community is to find a way to better connect individuals to services and handle the public safety issues. This is a part of town where folks where there have been serious and very concerning safety issues from, as you mentioned, the folks that prey on the homeless. For this neighborhood, and so we've got a set of tools that includes this kind of activity, as well as the social services. You all approved the Navigator contract earlier today, which is one of the things for this particular area. And so I know it's late. The host team is not, the APD is not part of the host team.
Would you like me to answer?
All right, well, thank you. Sorry, maybe you can answer better than me.
Yes, APD is part of the host team. We primarily focus our efforts in the downtown area. I believe the concept of the host team is something that we would try to pilot in this particular area and see what type of successes we get with this particular pilot project. Absolutely. And I think where we're at is that I know that it says in the resolution we're talking about a pilot, but in reality I think this gives us the authority on the one aspect to act as an agent for the criminal trespass, which is just one component, and then the pilot itself is going to be much broader than just the one component.
So this
And-
gives a tool. They could put a host team out in this part of town right now. They don't need any authority to do it. They can put a host team out there. But when the host team goes up to someone who's sleeping, they now have all this. This gives the host team a tool they didn't have before. And the question,
We do pay for. We do pay for them.
yeah,
Okay.
Councilmember Alter.
All right, it's really late. We should not be here anymore. But as I was a co-sponsor on this, it's my understanding that the goal of this was to solve a very particular problem that they had in this area, and it is to help resolve issues that they're having with people who are preying on homeless people. It is not to go and wake up somebody who's sleeping. It's because they needed a particular tool, because there were people in this area who were preying on homeless, and they needed a legal mechanism that was identified by all of these authorities. That was the missing link in what they needed in order to be able to begin to resolve the problems in conjunction with all of the supports and all of the other things to help those people who are experiencing homelessness. And that this is what the authorities and APD said needed to come, and it needed to come from council in order for them to be able to do that. But it is not to be taking homeless people out who are sleeping there. It is they can go from one place to the other and escape APD, and APD can't do anything about it. And that's creating a vicious cycle.
And are we going to be using that pilot to learn about expanding? I mean, we have bridges under Riverside that it's populations of homeless living in there. We have them under 35. We have them in 183. We have them all over. There's camps everywhere. Are we going to be able to go into parks and enforce the no trespassing after 10? Because there's little small villages in our parks right now.
Absolutely. We'll take the information that we learned from this pilot and hope take the successes and expand those to other parts of the city if they're successful.
So, Mr. Mayor, can we go ahead and